In Massachusetts, Moira Healey has been elected America's first openly lesbian state governor. The Democrat Wes Moore has won in Maryland to become the first black governor of the state.
All of you, and to all of you out there, with the help of so many, we made history, didn't we? We made history. I stand before you tonight proud to be the first woman and the first gay person ever elected governor of Massachusetts.
And what we're seeing today is that in Maryland, we can come together. You know, I was telling somebody, you know a question I never once asked my soldiers? What's your political party? It never got brought up. We know that not everybody in this state has been so lucky. When I was an Army captain, I led soldiers in combat in Afghanistan. We lived by a simple principle: leave no one behind. But for too long, Maryland, we are leaving too many of our family and our neighbors behind. And so during this campaign, many of you have told me about so many of the challenges that you're facing. And I want to let you know that I hear you.
Keeping a tab on all the results as they come in is Arise correspondent Rotimi Kade, who joins us live from Florida. Rotimi, thank you for joining us. So the predicted red wave appears not to have materialized. Let's start with the House of Representatives. What's the latest there?
Well, yes, you're right. The predicted red wave was predicted was never something that we've seen right now, because from the results we've had so far, about 64 seats is still up for grabs, even though the GOP are looking likely that 20 seats, I should say, is up for grabs. So far, so good. But, going by some of the results and some of the surprises that we've seen in the night, we've seen Democrats actually proven that they can really fight. And that's exactly what we've seen. No surprises so far from, predominantly Democratic states like New York. We see Alexander Ocasio-Cortez retaining her seats. In Texas, we've seen some gains from the Democrats as well. But so far, so good. Tonight has been, the election night, I should say, has been really, really something that many exit polls never predicted, even though we know that some results are still coming in. As I said earlier, 64 seats are still up for grabs in the House of Representatives. And it's looking like Democrats will share that spoil with the Republicans. But it's looking very more likely that the Republicans will definitely take the House.
And the Senate is also looking very tight as both parties are inching closer to that 51 mark. But there's been a crucial victory for the Democrats in Pennsylvania. Can you tell us a little bit more about John Fetterman's win?
Well, John Fetterman actually was really a big surprise of the night. Many analysts have predicted that he may actually lose to Dr. Oz just because Donald Trump was in the States backing Dr. Oz, not just once, not twice. And it looks like the Donald Trump effect did not actually pay out. The people of Pennsylvania decided to stay with their former lieutenant governor, now going to the Senate, despite the fact that there were concerns about his health and his ability to communicate to the public. But what we've seen also is that the Democrats have also proven that they can actually hold their own in other states. In the state of New Hampshire, for instance, where the GOP are looking likely that they're going to flip the seats. Senator Hassan actually was reelected, but it's not the same in other strongholds of the GOP, like in Georgia, for instance. Georgia right now is going to go to a total runoff where Herschel Walker is slightly leading the Senator Raphael Warnock. And that is really a big lift for the Republicans. If you don't forget, the governorship election was actually won by Governor Brian Kemp, and I believe that Brian Kemp's popularity was what Arshel Worker actually walked on, which means that even if it goes into a re-election, a runoff, I should say, that would most likely going to turn red because of the Stacey Abrams' effect has actually dwindled, and she conceded in governorship loss to Brian Kemp.
And Rotimi, in Georgia, it appears that race is heading for a runoff.
Oh, well, just as I said, yes, it's going to be a total runoff for them, and it's going to be sometimes in January. But Herschel Walker is really a big surprise because nobody ever expected that he's going to pull that. It was said that it was brought in from Texas, even though it's from Georgia, just less than a year, and was being supported by the Republican structure in Georgia, and moving into a more like a blue territory, and turning it red, almost turning it red, is really a big surprise. But we're going to be seeing some, perhaps maybe some drama going forward. Election is going to intensify in the next couple of weeks to come to see whether Warnock will be able to retain his seats, or perhaps maybe that incumbency factor from the Republican governor can rub off on Arshel Worker.
Yep, that Stacey Abrams definitely being a big shocker in Georgia. But now let's shift our attention to Florida, where a decisive victory for Ron Desantis is looking like he's inching closer and closer to being the Republican nominee. Now, I know we're waiting for President Trump's announcement on Tuesday, but what are your thoughts?
Well, as it was predicted, Ron DeSantis almost, is a no-brainer that it's not going to pick up the seats. I said seats. He's not going to pick up his re-election because it's so very popular in the states. And when you look at the Republican polls that's been held nationwide, it shows that Ron DeSantis is most likely going to be another contender with Donald Trump, but in the state of Florida, is holding it down. Almost all the county. And in fact, I'll tell you what, in 2020, most of the counties that flipped blue for Joe Biden has now flipped red for Ron DeSantis. And it tells you a lot about his popularity in the states. And going ahead of 2024 elections, we're going to see a nail-biting event between him and former President Trump, who obviously has shown through his body language that he's going to, made his announcement for a re-election in 2024. But when you look at it, Ron DeSantis has really gained most trust from most of the big sponsors of Republican parties nationwide, and they are most likely going to be leaving the Trump's camp for Ron DeSantis, most likely.
Arise correspondent Rotimi Kade, live from Florida. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsday. We appreciate your time and analysis.